Hello and welcome back to another modelled writing lesson. So this is an updated lesson, slightly newer than some of the other modelled write lessons. And just because you have been asking me for more of these lesson types, I do agree. I think they're really useful for your learning process during the IELTS. So I'm just adding more for you now. Of course, today we'll be looking at the topic of tourism and we'll be working through, again, a range of question types for IELTS Writing Task 2. So let's jump right in. Let's take a look at our question. Okay, so tourism is encouraged in many countries. Does tourism bring more advantages or disadvantages to a country? Okay, interesting question. So first thing, and this is exactly what you should be doing, identify the question type and think about the structure of your essay. So we have advantages and disadvantages. Pretty straightforward. This is an advantages and disadvantages question. No need to give an opinion. It's not asked. So this is our question sentence here. Tourism is encouraged in many countries. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this? Okay, so of course, introduction paragraph always the same. We have supporting paragraph 1 and supporting paragraph 2. And I can really start hashing out my plan. One thing I do want to say again, when you're writing your plan, there is no need to write really long, grammatically accurate sentences. You can write this in note form, really short. Don't worry about the grammar. You're not assessed on your plan. Okay, well, let's just write P1. You can write SP, supporting paragraph 1, P1 is the same, no problem. And I'm going to basically explore the advantages of tourism in paragraph 1. So what are some of the advantages? The first thing I'll say is boost to economy. Economy, there we go. Boost to economy. That's a big one. Tourism is a really great boost for many local and national economies. Although sometimes it can be a disadvantage because if for some reason, example COVID, tourism decreases, then some countries find themselves in problems. Maybe this could be part of paragraph 2. Boost to economy. What other advantages can I think of? What else does tourism bring? I think it would be nice to talk about understanding different cultures. This global awareness, lovely expression, we could use that. Boost to economy, understanding different cultures, that would probably give me about enough to explore these two big advantages. If I really describe them fully, give examples, further my ideas with extra structures, that would probably be okay. P2, let's explore the disadvantages. Tourism is encouraged in many countries. Let's say reliance can be bad. For example, can be bad. And then if we put, let's say, COVID here, or any pandemic, or any decrease in tourists arriving in a place can be really bad for the local economy if they are too reliant on that source of income. What else is a big disadvantage to the country? I think a few things we could say is damage to environment. Environment, there we go, damage to environment. It's not always the case, but sometimes tourism can damage the environment. For example, for instance, if there are lots of tourists on, say, a popular beach path, they can erode, they can damage the path just by the amount of footfalls. Just an example for you there. Okay, so damage to the environment. I might just add one more in case I need to add a bit more writing. What else is a disadvantage of tourism? We could probably talk about misunderstandings as a disadvantage too. Damage to environment, we could also talk about plane journeys. Tourism often uses planes, flight, and this is also a big cause of damage to the environment. Misunderstandings between cultures can sometimes cause arguments or heated debates. A smaller disadvantage, but definitely relevant to this question, so I would be scoring well on task achievement. And no need to include my opinion here, so we can just leave with this. This is my plan. Okay, so I think now's the time. I'm not going to have this when I start writing. I just need to think back, but of course in your test you will. I think it's time that we begin our writing now. Okay, so let's begin with, of course, our introduction. So we need to paraphrase our question statement here, our question sentence. Tourism is encouraged in many countries. I'm not going to use a synonym for tourism. I actually think I might end up repeating this word quite a lot. Tourism, tourists, travellers. We could maybe say globetrotters, trying to think of other words. But sometimes there isn't many useful synonyms. So let's not worry too much about changing this word. Tourism is encouraged in many countries. Let's maybe change the structure slightly. Instead of starting with tourism, I'm going to start with many countries. Many countries. So I'm almost flipping the sentence here. I'm flipping it by starting with the end of it. Another way to paraphrase is to change the order. Many countries around the world. Around the world. A nice extra bit of detail. Many countries around the world enjoy and encourage tourism. Enjoy and encourage tourism and travelling visitors. So I've really added quite a lot to this sentence here. It's probably some advanced paraphrasing. Many countries around the world enjoy and encourage tourism and travelling visitors. I do like that. I think that's a strong opening structure. In this essay, I will explore the advantages. I can almost write this with my eyes closed, and disadvantages of this trend. Pretty much always can use this with the comma to open your plan sentence. So we have paraphrase, plan, and then of course outline now. I will explore, I will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of this trend. Okay, firstly, I will explore, I've already used that. I will weigh up the advantages of tourism. And secondly, I will, check your spelling of course, I will discuss the disadvantages that tourism, repeating myself, but that's okay, can bring. Okay, let's have a quick read through. Many countries around the world enjoy and encourage tourism and travelling visitors. In this essay, I will explore the advantages and disadvantages of this trend. Firstly, I will weigh up, a nice phrasal verb, the advantages of tourism. And secondly, I will discuss the disadvantages that tourism can bring. Very nice, a nice opening introduction there. It's also worth me saying whilst writing, I'm sure I've probably said this a few times, it's good to read back and edit. Part of editing writing is doing this editing whilst writing. Reading back, changing things, making sure your spelling is good, making sure your grammar is accurate. Okay, so first up, I'm going to explore the advantages. And the first thing that I said was a boost to the economy. Okay, let's begin this supporting paragraph 1. Let's think of a nice opening phrase here. Quite clearly, one of the biggest benefits of global and local tourism is the huge boost to economies that this can bring. That's my topic sentence. Quite clearly, one of the biggest benefits of global and local tourism is the huge boost to economies that this can bring. And now add more detail. Let's say, so we want to give, this is kind of my extra supporting sentence here. So I want to elaborate on this, say a bit more. What type of money? How is it spent? Many people know that when they travel, they will quite often spend a lot of money. Hyphen, really nice bit of punctuation to add a small detail. Quite often in local shops or businesses. So this hyphen here is a really advanced piece of punctuation, a nice way to show off to the examiner. And we just use it at the end of a structure to add a bit more detail. So I've just got this quite often in local shops or businesses. Now, this doesn't work on its own. It needs this sentence here. So I have a complex sentence. Many people know that when they travel, they will often spend a lot of money. I don't think I need the comma because this is my linking word in a sense. Many people know that when they travel, they will quite often spend a lot of money. Sometimes, so I'm editing here, quite often, let's change this. Sometimes in local shops or businesses. For example, as people visit new places, they will purchase, don't want to say buy too often, they will purchase goods and let's say, what's the word for tourist products, touristy products? What would that word be? I think we could probably use souvenirs maybe. They will purchase goods and souvenirs. That's a nice word. And souvenirs of this place. As well as, so let me just check this structure now. I'm adding quite a lot of commas. Remember, often simple is better. For example, as people visit new places, they will purchase goods and souvenirs of this place. And I've added place here. Let's visit new, let's say, what can we say instead of place? New locations. They will purchase goods and souvenirs of this place, as well as using local I want to say transport, as well as using local facilities such as transport or shops, we could say, or restaurants. That would be good to mention. Just adding more detail as I write. Let's have a quick read back. For example, as people visit new locations, they will purchase goods and souvenirs of this place, as well as using local facilities such as transport or restaurants. Lovely. So I've really given some good examples here of boosts to the economy in terms of buying goods and souvenirs, as well as using transport or restaurants, these facilities. Okay, very nice. What was my second point? Just took a quick look there. It was understanding different cultures. Furthermore, a great advantage of people visiting countries or cities they have never been to can be that they develop their understanding of a new and foreign culture. So this was my second point. It was about developing more of a global understanding, a global mindset. Furthermore, a great advantage of people visiting countries or cities they have never been to can be that they develop their understanding of a new and foreign culture. This can lead to a better knowledge of how people around the world live differently. For example, did I use for example before? For instance. Let's use for instance. For instance, by understanding, or let's say by knowing, because we've used understanding previously, I think. Understanding is okay. By understanding different cultures, we can all come to respect each other much more. Okay, lovely. So I'm just sort of sharing this understanding different cultures is my main point for this second part of supporting paragraph 1, the advantages. Furthermore, a great advantage of people visiting countries or cities they have never been to can be that they develop their understanding of a new and foreign culture. That's almost a little too long, but it's grammatically accurate. It still works well. This can lead to a better knowledge of how people around the world live differently. For instance, by understanding different cultures, we can all come to respect each other much more. A lovely final sentence here. Okay, so that's great. Supporting paragraph 1 is done. I think it's time for supporting paragraph 2, which is, of course, the disadvantages. So the first thing I said was, quick look, reliance can be bad. On the other hand, one of the biggest disadvantages of tourism can be reliance on this as a source of income. Reliance. So this is my point here. So if a country, for example, or even just an area is reliant on tourists, and the tourists stop coming, it can be devastating for their local economy. On the other hand, one of the biggest disadvantages of tourism can be reliance on this as a source of income. COVID, I want to discuss COVID. Maybe I could say, use COVID in the example. If an area relies heavily on tourists, spending money there, but tourists stop visiting. I think this might need some editing. If an area relies heavily on tourists spending money there, but tourists do stop visiting, I think that sounds just a little bit better, but tourists do stop visiting, then this can be devastating for the local economy, there we go. Okay, and I also want to give an example now. I've used for instance, I might just jump straight into this example. If an area relies heavily on tourists spending money there, but tourists do stop visiting, then this can be devastating for the local economy. Instead of, for example, I'm just going to open with COVID-19 has meant that global tourism has crashed, leaving many countries who need tourists for income in a poor financial situation. Okay, so my example sentence here. COVID-19 has meant that global tourism has crashed, leaving many countries who need tourists for income in a dire would be even better. That's a lovely word. In a dire financial situation. Okay, so my second point here is about this reliance. I've got my topic sentence to introduce. I've got my support sentence here, just giving a bit more information, explaining in a little bit more detail, and my example to further explain my detail, really hammering that task achievement score here using this structure. Okay, and my second point. was damage to the environment. I also said about misunderstandings between different people, but possibly won't have time to fit that in, as really I'm aiming for just above 250 words. Okay, so as well as this globe-trotting, slightly strange phrase to use, but I just don't want to use tourism too much. Globe-trotting can also mean a huge increase in environmental issues. Pollution, let's say pollution and problems. Pollution and problems. Let's just read this back. As well as this, globetrotting can also mean a huge increase in environmental pollution and problems. Many people need to travel by planes. This is almost an example sentence here. I'm being specific about what type of pollution. So that's okay. Maybe or this is really supposed to be my support sentence, but maybe I'll give 2 examples for this. Many people need to travel by planes. And as we know, planes are a huge contributor to CO2, to carbon emissions, which lead to global warming. Also, furthermore, in addition might be a little bit better. In addition to this, as tourists travel to a location, they may cause pollution through littering or not caring for the local environment. So really, I've given 2 examples here of the types of environmental pollution. That's my first example is planes. My second example here is just about sort of tourists maybe not caring so much about the environment. In addition to this, as tourists travel to a location, they may cause pollution through littering or not caring for the local environment, as the local population might. Just a little extra added addition at the end. Okay, I think that works great. And here is my conclusion sentence just to finish off. In conclusion, we can clearly see that there are many advantages and disadvantages when considering the effects of tourism. Apologies for spelling mistakes as I go. It's because I'm writing and speaking at the same time. 2 things at once is often difficult to do. In conclusion, we can clearly see that there are many advantages and disadvantages when considering the effects of tourism. Really easy to write these conclusions that pretty much follow very much the same structure. Okay, so that is this task 2 essay in full. I would maybe suggest pausing this video and reading through this, maybe not 1 time, but 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Try and rehearse and learn the structures that I use, the language that I use, the linking words, and try and use this sort of language in your writing too. This would score a band 9. I'm pretty confident of that. It's probably, if I don't mind saying so myself, it really does tackle the question well, so task achievement's good. It's got a good range of grammar, without error, and vocabulary, as far as I can tell. Obviously now the best thing to do would be to read through and edit if you have time. And I think one thing we need to check is the word count, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so this stands at 328 words. Pretty much perfect. I wouldn't really recommend going much higher than this. And of course, remembering that we need to stick within that 40-minute period. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And of course, let's move on to our next modelled write.